as well as a lobbyist with the Georgia Youth Justice Coalition for Action. Gathered here today is a coalition of voices from Georgia Equality, Deep Center, the American Civil Liberties Union, as well as students, parents, and community leaders that have taken the time out of their day to raise the alarm on Senate Bill 88. We don't need more censorship in classrooms, and we don't need any laws that target Georgia's most vulnerable. Senate Bill 88 would deny students the opportunity to learn accurate lessons to fully express themselves. It would police how teachers dress, and it would even prevent school staff from simply calling transgender students by their name. Bigoted and hateful legislation only distracts us from the real problems our students are facing every day in our classrooms. Our classrooms are consistently underfunded. Teachers are overworked and underpaid, and there is a growing need for mental health support and counselor funding. Yet lawmakers are spending valuable time targeting exactly those that they were sworn to protect. We demand that lawmakers stand with our students, not against them, by creating legislation that can support and uplift all of Georgia's youth. Today, you will hear the testimony of students, parents, and elected officials from all of Georgia who have come here today to say the same thing. The choice to target and exclude transgender students is dangerous. It discriminates, it threatens every student's constitutional right to a quality public education, and it prevents us from being the actual change needed in our classroom. First, we're going to have Coco Guthrie-Pape of the Deep Center in Savannah, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting youth. Coco will be sharing testimony from youth and educators.
Good afternoon. My name is Coco Pappy, and I am the Director of Public Policy at Deep Center, based in Savannah, Georgia. We work with both young people and adults in the school district and also in the justice system. And I'm here today on behalf of our organization, on behalf of our community, of our educators and our staff and our young people who cannot be here. But I want to share with you their testimonies and their stories of what happened when we told them about this bill. From an educator, Megan. I mentioned SB 88 to our high school students. I said that it might mean that adults at school might have to out a student for their parents, and if the student was going by a name and or pronouns other than what was reflected on their birth certificate, that there might be consequences. Amid cries of outrage from the peers, one of our quietest young people, Sam, began to twitch from anxiety overwhelming their body, and I noticed the intense reaction and asked what was going on. Sam confided in me that she's trans. She's called her chosen name and pronouns at Deep, but she lives with a stepdad who preaches homophobia and transphobia. I feel so trapped. I don't know what to do, she told our educator. Her eyes were full of tears and she nodded. I just wish my family could love me the way I am instead of the way people perceive me. How she was always walking on eggshells and she was forced to lie to protect her safety. How she tried to tell her mom who she was but had been dismissed. Sam is looking for a mentor. Sam was looking for someone to affirm her, and this bill, SB 88, is going to threaten that. From another educator, day in and day out, I talk with educators scrambling to get books in students' hands and homes to increase literacy and civic engagement. We are working with teachers who don't have a chance to go into the bathroom all day long because they are stepping in to cover a colleague's classroom in their free period or chatting before or after school with students to build relationships. They are putting work in not just because they want to be friendly or good at their jobs, it's because they care. This bill adds one more burden on top of their overfull plates. This is something we cannot be asking educators to do. And lastly, one of our young people who specifically, when we talked to them about this bill, this is what they said. I am trans. That's it. That's literally it. That's all there is. And I'm so proud and happy to be trans. It's who I am. But I am afraid of losing old and new relationships because of my gender. It's just too sad. When I tell people I'm trans, it can be heartbreaking because I see people go from treating me like a human to treating me like a thing. Even with new relationships, it's the same thing. I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to react. SB 88, it fills me with fear. That should speak for itself. The fear of losing everything, future jobs, potential partners, friends, my life, my school, my safe place. It's honestly scary, and I sometimes wonder why it has to be this different and why legislators want to pass laws like this. Maybe it'd be different if I was born in the correct body to the way I feel. There are so many solutions available for safe, culturally affirming schools, for fully funded schools, for addressing both student and educator needs. This bill, SB 88, this is not it. And so I am imploring you to please call your senators and tell them to vote no on SB 88. Thank you.
This bill will have on her children.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Hadley. Thank you for listening to me speak today. My husband and I were both born out of state, but we met in Snellville and decided to make our life here in Georgia. Our 3 children were born and raised in Gwinnett County and have attended Gwinnett County Public Schools since kindergarten. SB 88 undermines our ability to parent our children effectively by creating a contradictory environment anytime we send our children off to school, to a public library, even to a day camp. For example, our eldest child is autistic and non-binary. Ryan's struggles at school are immense. However, the school supports Ryan with an excellent IEP and with excellent teachers. A common trait of autism is perseveration, and anytime Ryan is misgendered or called the wrong name, they are literally unable to move on. This isn't a lack of discipline, this is how my child's brain is wired. Fortunately, because of supports in the school, this is a rare occurrence. SB 88 would therefore hinder my child's ability to learn by causing doubt and confusion in teachers, support staff, administration, as to how to address my child despite our family's clear decision to recognize who Ryan is. I question the feasibility and timeliness, even with written permission, for schools to implement this, because there would be trainings, software updates on existing budgets. How would you allow a substitute teacher to know? When Ryan is at school, Ryan should be focused on learning so that they can graduate high school one day and become a productive and happy member of society. Our youngest son, Milo, is also trans. Milo is a junior Beta Club member with a 95 grade point average, straight A's since kindergarten, who entered the gifted program in first grade. Milo was runner-up for his original music composition in the National Association for Music Education Songwriting competition last year and was featured this year in the Georgia Music Educators Annual Showcase. Milo is an exceptionally talented and determined student. Milo loves school. However, the first month of this past semester, Milo refused to eat or drink at school because he was afraid to go to the bathroom. As soon as teachers and staff became aware, as soon as they found out, Milo was issued a bathroom pass and was able to use an existing unisex bathroom. Ryan being Ryan and Milo being Milo doesn't impact or distract their peers, and there is no threat to anyone else. SB 88, however, does threaten my children. Studies show that trans children, by an order of magnitude, are more likely to attempt and complete suicide than their cisgendered peers. An affirming family and school cuts that by half. These children can be simply and respectfully accommodated without impacting anyone else, allowing them to just focus on their schoolwork. The path forward already exists. There is no need to block my children's success with Senate Bill 88. I respectfully request a no vote on the bill at this time. Thank you.
That was deeply moving. Thank you, Jennifer. Next, we have Zainab Abdel Sabor, a high school student from Fulton County who will speak to the personal impacts that this bill will have on queer youth in Georgia.
Hello, my name is Zainab Abdel Sabor, and I'm a junior at Innovation Academy in Alpharetta. Senate Bill 88 is a deeply flawed piece of legislation that will undoubtedly have a profound impact on a lot of Georgia students and have an earth-shattering impact on young LGBTQ students. Between the arbitrary last chance grabs at meaningless changes to the pure motive behind it, there is not a single reason a high school student like myself can get behind this bill. School is an environment where I am meant to feel safe and enriched by not only the planned lessons, but the social experiences and connections that I will make throughout my time at high school. The core of my education has come from the environment that is only possible because students who choose to are able to create a welcoming environment for students of any sexual orientation and any gender identity. It is because I'm able to walk into school and know that no matter how bad my day might be or how my day might go, there is always that one teacher who is there to openly love and support me and my friends. I have seen multiple of my peers and dear LGBTQ friends navigate the first day of school unsure of how a teacher may react when they ask for something as simple as a name change or to be referred to by a different set of pronouns. And I've also seen their days get exponentially better once that teacher blissfully takes their request and implements it into their day-to-day class. Teachers who are there to openly support LGBTQ students have had an amazing impact on the well-being of these students. The impact a supportive and loving teacher has on an LGBTQ student is undeniable, and taking away the freedom of a teacher to express such love and support is vile. It is an unnecessary action that only seeks to fix unproblematic problems and take away the already limited love and support that my LGBTQ friends and peers face. Taking away the opportunity to build a healthy student-teacher relationship is bound to have immeasurable damages that lawmakers will never face because lawmakers are no longer vulnerable high school students. Making the decision to pass Senate Bill 88 is making the decision to profoundly impact the lives of students with beautiful, limitless potential, and passing the bill means limiting the amount of simple love and support my generation will have.
Thank you so much, Zainab. Our next speaker is Bentley Hudgins. Bentley Hudgins is a grassroots organizer and queer community builder. Hudgins took the problems that they saw and experienced as a result of bigoted legislation in their community and then took that to run a grassroots campaign for House District 90. And today we'll be speaking on the direct impacts of this bill.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us at this press conference and listen to my colleagues. So one thing that a lot of people don't know is that when I was in college, I was blackmailed by a colleague. He threatened to tell my family that I was queer before I was ready. And this had followed an experience with sexual violence, racial discrimination, and medical discrimination. This was, for me, the straw that broke the camel's back. After receiving a threat of telling my parents, who at the time did not believe in the validity of non-straight, non-cisgender people, that threat really sent me in a place that was not so great. I spent weeks in my room being scared to leave, being scared to be seen by my other colleagues, because if one knew, then they must all know. And if my parents found out, I wouldn't have a place to stay. I wouldn't have a place to eat because I was working 3 part-time jobs, but I could only afford rent. I couldn't afford to buy groceries and to pay for the medicines that I needed to stay in school. So my parents, knowing that I was queer, in essence meant that my life would stop. I wasn't ready for my dreams to die. And I could only imagine what that feels like for somebody in middle school or in high school. I wasn't even at home, and it felt like my world was ending. The only people that I had to really talk to about this was actually my professors. My professors at the philosophy department at Mercer took time out of their day to help me through a really tough situation. There's also counselors provided by the university that were able to talk through the experiences that I had been going through. See, the problem is that queer people like me and like the kids across the state do not exist in one way. We are not just queer people. We are Asian people. We are women, some of us. Some of us are non-binary. Some of us are men. Some of us are poor. There are many intersections at which we experience the world, and our identities are just maybe one facet of them. So we can't move across this world selectively choosing who and what we talk about with what a part of ourselves that we want to share. That's not a way to live. So in context of this bill, taking away even more spaces for queer kids, for people like me, who just needed somebody to talk to find a reason to live, to find a reason to get through this, would end up in more kids experiencing harm and more kids leaving this planet way too soon. I understand that what happens when we fail with policy is that we have a real human cost. I urge those in the General Assembly to vote no on Senate Bill 88 and any bills that are going to pop up after this like they always do. It's not just one, there's going to be many. So thank you for your time. I urge folks who are watching this to tell a queer person that you love them, that they mean the world to you, and that you support them. Take the time to make sure that they know that they have a friend, that they have somebody that supports them, because when we see things like this in the press, day in and day out, it makes us question whether or not we belong to this world, and we need you to tell us that we do.
Thank you so much, Bentley. Next, we'll have Selena Herrera of the Georgia Latino Alliance for Human Rights.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Selena Herrera. I'm a grassroots community organizer with the Georgia Latino Alliance for Human Rights. And today we stand against SB 888. Wait, sorry. And as a mother, I'm concerned that my children's education is being dismissed, and instead of creating a safe space and a supportive environment, we are excluding our kids. I want my kids to thrive in an environment that recognizes their unique abilities and enhanced love for who they are. My family is open about conversations about the LGBTQ+ community. I am a mother of 3 kids, and all of them are surrounded by family members that belong to the LGBTQ+ community. SB 888 would censor my kids and their love towards their uncles and tias. As a parent, I trust teachers to provide a diverse education to my kids to prepare them for the world. Teachers are experts on what is age appropriate for children and should be trusted to do their work. I refuse to give politicians power to decide what they think is right or wrong. I want my kids to be able to focus on schools instead of worrying about being mistreated or treated differently because of who they are or where they are from. SB 888 is a wrong approach to access the necessity of our students. Our students are facing a mental health crisis that was augmented by the pandemic. Lawmakers need to pass legislation to address the lack of mental health programs, to address the teacher shortage and lack of funding for our kids' education. SB 888 is an attack on my kids' freedom of speech and an attack to their education. Georgia lawmakers need to do right by our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Selena. Now, Francesca Rue, a Georgia State student, will be sharing personal testimony.
Hi, everyone. My name is Francesca Rue, and I'm with the Georgia Youth Justice Coalition for Action. I went to Midtown High School. It's about 2 miles away from here, and it was a wonderful place to go to high school, partly because it was so diverse, but partly because, specifically, it had a wonderful, large population of queer students. I recognized that I was queer during high school, and the timeline was my own personal business. And what was wonderful about my experience was that I could see all of the other students around me, many of whom were queer, realizing who they were on their own similar personal timelines. Midtown High School was wonderful because it had a student body that was allowed to exist on its own terms. SB 88 would ruin that. SB 88 would act as a gag order, and a very vague, very constraining gag order for teachers to interfere with their students' personal identities just as they're discovering them. I mentioned my high school because I have seen an example of a queer community allowed to thrive. I have seen a queer community that is allowed to exist on its own terms, on its own timeline, and without involvement from the powers that be above us. SB 88 would act as a dampening effect on all of that. And it is imperative that as LGBTQ suicides, as suicides with girls and other populations targeted, those are already rising. So I hope that our lawmakers come to see the light and recognize that SB 88 is a coward's attempt to target a demographic that is already persecuted enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francesca. Now Mason Goodwin, another Georgia State student, will read testimony from a Hall County student on the impacts of these bills on queer and trans students.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mason Goodwin. I'm with the Georgia Youth Justice Coalition for Action. I'm a graduate of this state, but more importantly, I will be reading Forrest's testimony today, who is a student in Hall County, Georgia. Forrest could not make it here today, but is a student that will be directly impacted by the proposed SB 88 today. There's really rampant homophobia and transphobia in my school. There have been days where I knew that I couldn't go to school because there was a student that was going to beat me up for being queer. It took 17 complaints for the administration to pay attention to the issues, and it wasn't until he became too physical did the administration do anything. These anti-trans and anti-queer bills are having a direct effect on my life, my friends, and my family who identify as queer. Queer people deserve to be treated with respect, deserve to feel safe in schools, play sports, or just live as teenagers. I've been robbed of my teenage experience because my existence is controversial. I've been struggling with my mental health long before I knew the word transgender even was. And after I came out, it got worse. Not because I was queer, but because of how I was treated. If we really want to keep our students, our children safe, we need to ensure that all of them have mental health support. I want less SROs and admin that do nothing to ignore these issues, which SB 88 would further perpetuate by canceling my voice. I implore you to listen to transgender and queer youth, for we know what we are feeling, and politicians do not. We know that these bills have real effects on students like Forrest and across this state. We know that the consequences of this legislation, the committee knows that too. The question is whether or not lawmakers under the globe decides to prioritize students in their education or further perpetuate bigotry for their own political gain. Thank you.
Thank you, Mason. Our final speaker will be Jeff Graham from Georgia Equality. Jeff will speak to the legal incompatibility of Senate Bill 88.
Thanks for being here today. And we know that there are a lot of problems with Senate Bill 88, both as it was introduced, they're working on a substitute bill. The language is very vague, which leads to confusion in the classroom, confusion amongst administrations. There are provisions that are in the original bill that look at how this would be enforced, that oversteps what the state of Georgia, what the Georgia legislature can do. For instance, it is not appropriate for the state to take away a nonprofit license from a fully accredited school. The implications of the language that we have today would do away with the opt-in provisions on state-mandated sex education classes. It violates the First Amendment on a number of grounds for both students, faculty, and administrators. And at the end of the day, as you have already heard, it is an expansive censorship bill which, despite targeting LGBTQ students and educators, could have far-reaching implications for Georgia families' ability to access a quality education and for Georgia educators to provide one. The role of our teachers is to provide a safe and inclusive learning environment for our kids, free from bullying and discrimination. Bills that force teachers to out LGBTQ+ kids to their parents are extremist political stunts that pit teachers, parents, and students against each other. And that hurts all of our kids. Instead, teachers and parents should be allies with each other, and teachers should be not forced to violate the trust of their students. Thank you.
First, I want to thank all of our speakers for their incredibly powerful testimony. That was the last speaker of our press conference, and we're so grateful to everyone who's watching. We hope that after listening to these students, advocates, and parents, we hope that after listening to their powerful stories, that you'll leave with a deeper understanding of how our communities are impacted by this deeply harmful legislation, and how we can all work to truly uplift all of our students. At this time, if there are any questions, we will take questions at this time. With that said, thank you all so much. It's time for our elected officials to stop interfering in teachers' work and putting our children in danger and start focusing on the real issues young people and families are facing every day. It's time for politicians to quit targeting marginalized kids who are already facing so much prejudice. Legislators should focus on what our communities really need: well-resourced, well-funded schools made safe by supportive counselors and teachers who can support their students without any fear of retaliation. To be subject to unnecessary, hateful, anti-queer legislation when there is so much more work that needs to be done to improve the lives of all Georgians, it's the deepest betrayal of the values of empathy, understanding, and community that we all share. We know that our vision of a just and equitable public education system in Georgia, it's not only attainable, but it is absolutely necessary. Thank you again to everyone watching and listening. Thank you again to all of our wonderful speakers for contributing to this event, especially to our students and parents. We know that your stories are powerful, but sometimes hard to share. You all did a truly outstanding job. Thank you.